come to order. I'll ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Item one, first of all, we welcome you to this January meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We've got a house full. All these students that you're seeing in the audience came they were so excited about local government, they volunteered to come. Now, the other side of that, the real truth is, if they don't come to this and a meeting of the county commission and a meeting of the school board, they don't pass. So that's the reason you see all these eager faces. But the main thing they want us tonight, I'm sure, and probably most of you too, is that we get through this in as not a brief fashion, but just let's say we give everything the attention it needs, but move right on, and that's what we're going to try to do. And we're going to start, though, on item 1.2 is the administration of the oath of office for 2 new police officers, and we're delighted to do this. Chief Thompson. Chief Thompson and our city recorder, Lisa Crockett, will take care of this matter.
I appreciate it. This is Houston Evans, Wade Coble. These are 2 of our newest police officers, and we're excited and proud to have them on board, so thank you.
We welcome you both.
I state your name.
I, Houston Evans,
Having been appointed as a police officer for the city of Springfield, Tennessee,
having been appointed as a police officer for the city of Springfield, Tennessee,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Charter of the ordinances of the city of Springfield,
and the Charter of the ordinances of the city of Springfield,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office
and I will faithfully perform the duties of the office
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Oh, my honor, I will never betray my badge,
Oh, my honor, I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself
I will always have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable for our actions.
and others accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community, and the agency I serve.
my community, and the agency I serve. Thank you.
All right, item 1.3 is the annual presentation of our financial statements and supplementary information for the fiscal year just ended on June 30th of 2014. Our auditors are here to present this report, and I'll ask them to come forward at this time.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jeff Proctor, and I have the distinction of being your auditor this year. And I very much appreciate this audit and enjoy doing it. And it's good to see all you guys again.
Well, thank you.
A couple of new faces.
Glad to have you with us.
I recognize most of you guys. I'm in the interest of being brief and to the point. I'm going to briefly go through your audit and tell you a little bit about your financial statements. Then I'm going to open the floor to questions. Anything you want to ask, feel free to ask it. I may know the answer. If not, I've brought one of the gentlemen who helped me with this audit back here with me, and he will certainly know the answer.
Okay, go right ahead.
The first, well, when I started this audit a few years ago, I didn't need these, but I have started to need them. I want to draw your attention to page 4, if you have your audit in front of you. This is our report on your financial statements, and it there's a lot of legalese and a lot of language there, but essentially it says that we have an unqualified opinion of your financial statements. That means that we think they're fairly stated in all material respects, in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States of America. So that's about as good as that's a gold star from your auditor. It doesn't get much better than that. You get a smiley face. Second thing I want to draw your attention to is way over in the back. It's on page 77. These are the two reports that we are responsible for in this audit. The rest of this is your financial statements. This is a second report that is required to be issued in an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with governmental auditing standards, which obviously you guys are a government and would have to have this. We refer to this as a yellow book report because the body of material that set forth these standards was at one time bound in a great big yellow book. So we call it a yellow book report. A yellow book report basically is our report or our letter to you guys telling you some things about our audit and what we found in our audit. Specifically, it talks about internal control, and it talks about compliance with laws and regulations that you guys would be subject to. During our audit, we didn't specifically set forth to study your internal control to figure out where it was working or not. But in order to do the audit, we had to look at your internal control to figure out how you get the bills paid and how you get money into your bank account and those sorts of things. During that process, if we become aware of something that we think is a problem and we define a problem for you, then this is where we tell you about it. A problem is either a material weakness or a significant deficiency, generally speaking. A significant deficiency is a little problem. Material weakness is a big problem. Material weaknesses mean that we think that it's bad enough that you guys could have some bad problems with your financial statements. See is, hey, there's something here you guys really need to take a look at because it could lead to problems down the road. This year, during the course of our audit, we didn't discover anything. We've had things in this area in the past, and we've talked to you guys about them. But we didn't discover anything during the audit this year that we believed rose to either of those levels. Okay. The second part is compliance. In order to make sure that your financial statements are to be able to opine that your financial statements are fairly stated, we have to look at compliance. We don't want to issue an unqualified opinion if you guys are robbing the bank. So we want to take a look at whether you've complied with those laws and regulations, contracts, grant agreements, that sort of thing, that could have a material effect on your financial statements if you weren't in compliance with those. In this instance, it appears that you're in compliance with all those provisions. Anything that we looked at, it seemed like you guys were doing the right thing. So those are the two gold stars that I have to give the city of Springfield tonight. That's our part of the audit. I'm going to talk to you just briefly about your financial statements, kind of give you a brief overview of what the statements say and what you guys would look for if you wanted to look and read these things a little more carefully. If you really need some good reading material to take a nap to maybe tonight, this would be a good place to start. There's a lot of information here. Our Governmental Accounting Standards Board really requires that accountants present a lot of information. Sometimes less can be more, I feel like, but in any event. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is on page 15. This is what is referred to as the statement of net position. It's had a bunch of names over the years. They change it every few years on us just to make sure that we're paying attention. But it's basically a balance sheet for the entire government of the city of Springfield. There are two columns on this. One's governmental activities. Governmental activities are like police, fire department, civic programs that you guys run, things that are paid for with tax revenues. And then there's business type activities. And that's basically everything that your utility districts do. That's water, gas, electric, that sort of thing. Those two columns, and the final column totals them up. I call this a balance sheet, statement of net position. It shows you what you own and what you owe. Essentially, it shows that the city of Springfield had total assets at the end of June 2014 of $169,500,000 and change. Total liabilities down toward the bottom were $59,500,000 and change. The equity Essentially, the difference between the assets and liabilities was $106 million. And we'll flip over to the next page. This is what we who grew up doing accounting for businesses call an income statement. It's referred to as a statement of activities in governmental accounting. And it basically shows you what your revenues and expenses were. Both this and the balance sheet we just looked at are done on a full accrual basis of accounting, which means you put your assets on there, you put your debt on there, you put your receivables and your payables on there. It's a little backwards. If you look at the left-hand side of it, you'll see the functions or programs: general government, community development, public safety. You'll see that first column there is all your expenses. So the expenses for the city of Springfield for 2014 were $62 million. And that's both the utility districts and your general government expenses. Then there are what's referred to as program revenues. And program revenues are just revenues that are meant to support a specific program. For example, you're going to see your electric revenue there, your gas revenue, those sorts of things in that column. That falls under, charges for service, but it's also a program revenue. It's anything that's designed to meet a specific need. If you have some kind of fine or something that relates to some governmental department, it's going to show up there. If you have a grant from the federal government that's to support something like the police department, to buy a bulletproof vest with or something like that, it's going to show up in that middle section there. Everything kind of gets netted in those last two columns or three columns over there, and down at the bottom, they report your general revenues. And you're going to see big numbers down there for sales tax and property tax and that sort of thing. So it's basically a backwards income statement. They start with expenses and then end up with revenues. At the very bottom, you're going to see your change in net assets or change in net position, which is basically your bottom line. This year, the bottom line of the city was just over $3 million. Your government activities just basically were a break even. You made some money on the utilities. They had a positive ending result. We'll flip over and just touch briefly on these next two statements, or three. The next set of statements are the fund financial statements for the city. You kind of shift gears going from your government-wide statements, which are full accrual basis of accounting, look like a regular business, and kind of pull the whole thing together for you and show you everything, to the focus on individual funds of the government. This is kind of probably what you guys are used to seeing on a month-end basis. It's just it's basically, on the government side, it's cash in, cash out. It's a little more complicated than that, but assets, when you buy assets, they show up as an expense on the statement. When you pay debt, it shows up as an expense on the statement. It doesn't get put on the balance sheet. So that's kind of the difference between this and the other statements. Is it's more of it's under the modified accrual basis of accounting, but it's similar to a cash in, cash out type statement. This balance sheet that we're looking at here of your governmental funds is your current resources. It's the things that are collectible in about 60 days. It's things that you're going to get in cash soon enough to pay your current bills, your things that are coming due right away. So it's more of a quick look at the city and where you're at right this instant, rather than the government-wide, which is more of a long-term basis. The next page is simply a reconciliation, and if you ever look at this, the biggest things on here are assets and debt. Those are the biggest difference between your government-wide and your fund financial statements. The next page over is a statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance. This is, again, what I refer to as an income statement, revenues taken in and expenditures. And it, again, is the short-term look. It's things that are captured quickly. It doesn't include long-term debt. It doesn't include, it does include long-term debt, but it includes it as a payment. Assets are a payment or an expense on this. So this is more, again, of a current type thing rather than a long-range type statement. If you flip over to page 21, these are essentially all of the activities, your utilities, that go into the business type activities on your government-wide statements. These are the same basis of accounting, full accrual. It's just like a regular business would. You record your liabilities when you have them, if you have long-term debt, bonds, and some things like that. When you buy an asset, you put it on the balance sheet, just like you would in the business. Your assets are a little different. You've got, buildings, equipment, things like that, but you also have what I call sticks and strings and pipes, which is utilities, things like that in here too. This shows that the utilities had total assets of $112 million at the end of June, had total liabilities of about $38 million, 11 of which were current, and equity of about $73,604,000 net assets. It's another name for equity. It's the difference in your assets and your debt. And this just explodes into each of the individual utility districts, what you see in the government-wide in one column. On the next page, over on, I don't see the page number, 22. This is a statement of revenues, expenses, changes in that position for your utility districts. It's an income statement for your utility district. So you can look at each of your utilities and tell what revenues it had, what expenses it had, and it's in the position for those. One more page over, 23, is the cash flow statement. It tells you where cash came from and where it went during the year. What came from customers, what came from debt, borrowing, what went to pay salaries, what went to buy supplies and materials, that sort of thing. I'll give you a breakdown of that. Yes, sir.
What's a non-major fund?
A non-major fund? Non-major fund is a fund that, based on the reporting criteria for government, wasn't big enough to have its separate column. So it's going to be some of your smaller ones. Ankur, what are the non-major funds in
Sanitation and stormwater.
sanitation, stormwater? Couldn't remember them off the top of my head. I knew there's a reason I brought you. With that, in the interest of brevity, I'll be glad to answer any questions or talk any more about this if you'd like to. We can probably spend a week or two going through these if you guys so have the desire and the energy to do it.
Lady and gentlemen, do you all have any questions or comments? Start with you, Ann.
No.
Bobby? James?
Good job again.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff?
No, sir.
Okay. Going on down, Clay?
No questions.
When we talk about general fund balance,
Yes, sir.
that's a number we key on a lot of times. On page 19, is that the 2,383 number?
$2,383,891.
That's our, would be considered our general fund.
That would be considered your general fund. That would be considered the general fund balance. Yes, sir.
That's where we worked to, our goal was to reach 2 million, and we exceeded it, so that was.
I recall you guys had talked about that, and there was some mention of that in the meetings, that you guys were trying to get.
Keep it above, too.
Yeah, so that's good. You're almost 2.4 million, so that's good. All right, no more questions. Jeff, we thank you for the good work that you all do year in and year out, and looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much. Any of you have any questions anytime? Lisa knows how to find me. You guys feel free to call me or email me or whatever anytime you have any questions, anything comes up that you have something you need to ask me about. Be happy to talk to you.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we now have public hearings on 3 different issues. The first, under item 1.4, it concerns ordinance 14-24. This is an amended ordinance dealing with fire protection and fireworks, and in particular automatic sprinkler and standpipe systems. This is moving through the process. It's ready for second reading. Is there any comment from anyone in the audience pertaining to ordinance 14-24? If there is, you need to come to the podium on my left and take a couple of minutes to state your views. Any comments on that ordinance? Well, hearing none, we move to the second public hearing, and that concerns ordinance 14-25, and this is covering floodplain districts. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on that subject? All right, we'll close that and move to the third item, ordinance 15-01. This ordinance would establish a new time, a new hour for the regular meetings of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Would change that starting time of the meetings from 7:30 until 6 p.m. A lot of people felt that that earlier hour was a lot better for the majority of people who attend the meetings. So that will come up for a vote a little bit later on. Any comments with regard to that? All right, we'll conclude the public hearings, and we move now to 1.5. This is approval of the minutes for the special meeting that we had on December 2nd and the regular meeting held on December 16th. Is there a motion the minutes be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If you favor the approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered. And now we move into the legislative part of the agenda. At the bottom of your page, the first item is the sprinkler ordinance for clarity. I think that's what everybody knows it as. This is the third and final reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And the second?
Second.
Any discussion now on this ordinance before it's voted on the third and final time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Sneed.
On the sprinkler ordinance, may have to get someone in codes to answer these questions. There was a 5,000 square foot, if you had a business, if you was going to build a business that had 5,000 square feet, this ordinance is going to require you to put in sprinkler systems. Is that correct?
Only in two cases. If you're in the downtown fire district area, which is basically from 4th and 5th Avenue to 12th Avenue there, just shy of Central, that little shy area, or from Hill Street over to Cheatham, that's considered like the fire district. So you're in there,
So
you're over 5,000.
Hill Street to Cheatham, that's east
From about
west,
4th.
and then 4th Avenue on the other side of the center, back up there to where, how
About
far?
12. down
12th
there.
Avenue.
Yeah, that's considered the fire district.
Down by the railroad tracks.
That's correct, yeah.
So just a little past that.
So if you were building a business, you exceeded 5,000 square foot in that district, you'd have to fire
So
sprinkler.
that's new construction or a change of existing buildings, is that correct? Because that's where I read it too.
It's really a lot different when you talk about existing buildings. There's different provisions of the code. Not necessarily that would be the case more than the code would kick in there, because this is more for new construction, what we're dealing with here.
Well, I saw in there, it talked about if you had a change of occupancy.
Yeah.
If you had a building that's 5,000 square feet, you change occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's renting, they move out, somebody new moves in, you're going to say they need a fire sprinkler system.
Not unless the code requires it.
And
'Cause
that's kind of the code you're saying as far as what they're going to be doing in that building?
Example, like if say you got a business, you just wouldn't necessarily have to do it. Say they put in a restaurant that has 400 people in, it would by code, regardless of this ordinance itself.
Okay.
It's existing buildings are hard under the code because there's a lot plays into it. But really, this is primarily more for new construction, the square footages.
Well, we can say primary, but it's still under an envelope of everything else that's out there too. I mean, it does say that, so we have to include that. We can't exclude it because it says it in the ordinance. Change of occupancy
Change of
of
occupancy.
existing building, it's in there.
Let me see.
It's in
But
that first
the way
paragraph.
we've had this come up a couple times. The way the building code basically defines an existing building, really it kind of defines life safety. If it's a extreme life safety issue, like I explained, if you put a lot more people in the building itself, in those cases you'd have to sprinkle. But generally, existing buildings, there's a lot more to it. But say if it's a business and it's going to another business, regardless of the square footage.
Is this a piecemeal effort to try to get it, if this passed, there'll be a piecemeal effort to maybe get it in the larger residentials and places that's not in this core district? Because you could come back and say, well, we've got it over here, let's do it on the rest of it too.
What we're trying to do with this, it takes the existing provisions and honor in certain locations. Like one, if you're in that fire district, and two, because Springfield has a lot of older properties right on top of residential and commercial, and in those cases. But if you're like in the CS district out on south end of town or something, it wouldn't necessarily be required.
Well, you see, this wouldn't pass if you proposed it citywide. And I can see how things happen in the past up here. It gets piecemealed. It starts out here, but if sometime in the future it gets wound up, well, we're doing it here, well, let's do it a little bit rest. And then later in our ordinance, we're talking about what we can do, it's all down in our agenda, about recruiting businesses. I see it's down here toward the last part of our agenda. At the same time we're trying to recruit businesses, we're putting thousands of dollars of requirements on anything that happens downtown in a large area. So I don't have any more questions, but I thought that needed to be said.
Other questions or comments? Paul?
Basically, we're trying to make it less restrictive. The 5,000 restriction requirement applied citywide because we had such an older city. And then we looked at that and said, you know what, we can really define this better and reduce the area that's covered, that is required to have the sprinkler system to this degree. So it really is an improvement over what we currently have.
That was the idea, I thought, throughout the whole process, was to make these stringent rules apply only where the risk is at its greatest, which is considered the fire district downtown, as you outlined it. Those are older buildings, a lot of them are two-story or more, and that's where your fire risk is the greatest. So that being the case, everything I'd heard about it was this is more pro-business and tries to limit the need for sprinklers unless it's in that fire district.
This would affect 3 properties right now. They've been developed or plans submitted. One, the Dollar General. It's a 9,100 square foot building, so it basically pulls it out from being sprinkled. Don Williams has a mini warehouse, 8,400 square feet, pulls it under the square footage. And also on Central, there's I remember the name of the business, there's a site plan there approved across from where you go back to the gas department. It's like 5,600, so it'll pull it underneath the sprinkle requirement.
So it helps all of those businesses.
And also, we defined, it's in the building code now, you can separate a fire area of a building with a firewall. Existing building, new building, anything, you can separate. We define that in here, even though it's not required. So say you do have one out close to a residential area, like on Central, something right on top of a residential area, or in the downtown area, you could separate with a firewall and not have to fire sprinkler. 4,000 firewall, 4,000, even if it was over the 5,000 in the fire district.
But it's really the fire district and how close you are to a residential area that defines whether you're going to have the more serious restriction or not, or requirement.
Okay.
That was the intent with it, yes.
I've
You have
got
another question?
I've got another question. This will be for water department. It's also pertains to your supply line. What kind of water lines do we have that can support standpipe in this downtown area? Do we have water lines big enough where if I want to put a 4-inch riser for standpipe in the building, we've got that kind of water lines in all the area that we're putting this under?
I don't know. I think we do, but I'm not sure. I haven't been involved with any of this.
Because if you don't, it's staying business owner. If I own a piece of property and I want to develop it, everybody who owns property, if something changes in the future with some of these businesses down here, they're going to have to get that. They're going to have to pay for that upgrade for those utilities to get to their property so they can get that standpipe.
Chief Hamill, your department rates the pressure in the plugs. You test all the plugs throughout the city. How many fire plugs are in the city?
There's 963 fire hydrants.
Okay. And you code those. Go through that right quickly.
Yes, the blue fire hydrant, blue cap hydrants are hydrants that are flowing over 1,500 gallons per minute. The green caps run from, we'll back up to the orange. Orange is 500 gallons per minute to 999. And then green cap is 1,000 to 1,499 gallons per minute. The blue cap is 1,500 plus.
All right. As you all do your surveys and inspections and so forth, as you do your pre-planning of major buildings, do you find that the fire flow generally in the fire district is adequate?
the majority of the fire hydrants in our city fire district are adequate.
Okay.
They are flowing. We have several that are in blue cap. We have, the majority are probably green cap, up to $14.99.
Okay. Consistent with what is required in the fire district as a general statement.
As a general statement, given the fire flow requirements for a given building
Okay.
of a firefighting flow rate, it is sufficient.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Are there other questions on this matter?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Snyder?
let us not forget the business community has asked for this, and
That's what I thought.
we need to continue with
And
this.
we are making it easier for them.
Yes.
We are keeping the standard high where the risk is the greatest. Now, what's wrong with that?
I understand that you're trying to reduce the requirements for some of the build outside this fire district. I think it's not going far enough. I think that property owners in this fire district shouldn't be held to these kind of standards. If you're going to change it, I think you're changing it for outer areas, and you're just bringing it back into this core district. I think it's be changed to make it not so expensive for the existing property owners within this fire district. I mean, it's still a little bit too much for someone who owns property in this area. You don't know if you got a 2-inch line in front of your property. Is there a 4-inch line that's around the corner 2 blocks down the street that you're going to have to get it over here so you can get a 4-inch riser in your 10,000 square foot building? That's very cost prohibitive if you go
Still
in and
use
try
a
to do
firewall.
something.
You'd still use a firewall.
Well, now, if you're going to use a 10,000 foot building, if you've got 10,000 feet you want to use, you can't put firewall up in just the front office.
Well, you can put firewalls where you think to get you within the standard where you may not have to sprinkle, where you may not have more than 5,000 square feet that has to be sprinkled.
So I made a mistake.
All right, are there other questions? Other questions before we vote? We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
No.
Head.
Yes.
Trotter.
Aye.
Gregg. Pass 6-1.
All right, we move to the next page. Item 2.2, this is the second reading on the issue relative to floodplains. Is there a motion this be considered?
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on this item? Everybody good? Go? All right. And Adam McCormick, I didn't mention your name as you came to the podium, but you are, for those that do not know this gentleman, he's our Planning and Zoning Director, and we appreciate your comments and your answering those questions. All right, anything further on this matter before we vote?
Ready to vote.
Call the roll, please.
Head.
Yes.
Carneal.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Gregg. Sneed.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Okay, 2.3 sets the new time for the regular meetings of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Is there a motion?
So moved again.
Second? Second. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Gregg.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder. Aye. Carneal.
Aye.
Trotter. Head.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
All right, now that has to be voted on one more time, the third and final reading before it becomes effective, so that the effective date, assuming we pass it again in February, the effective date would be for the March meeting. The change would take place in March. All right, we move now to 2.4. This is a first reading, and our rules require that this be read by our city clerk. Ms. Connie?
Ordinance 15-02, an ordinance amending the schedule of fees and charges for play at the Legacy Golf Course by rescinding ordinances 14-02 and 14-21 in their entirety and substituting a new schedule of fees attached hereto as Exhibit A. Whereas Article 4, Section 13 of the Charter of the City of Springfield requires that fixing of fees and charges be accomplished through legislative action, which must be exercised by ordinance. And whereas the schedule of fees and charges for play at the Legacy Golf Course was approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen through adoption of ordinances 14-02 and 14-21. And whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen desires to amend the schedule of fees for the Legacy Golf Course at the recommendation of Cornerstone Golf Partners Incorporated. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1. The schedule of fees for play at the Legacy Golf Course is hereby amended by rescinding ordinances 14-02 and 14-21 in their entirety and substituting a new schedule of fees to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 2. This ordinance and the schedule of fees for the Legacy Golf Course as set forth in Exhibit A attached shall become effective immediately upon final passage. Section 3. All ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
All right, is there a motion that this be considered?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Duly seconded. Any discussion tonight on this?
Mr. Gale, with Cornerstone's here, if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Carneal,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Sneed,
Aye.
Trotter,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Gregg,
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Okay. We move now to the administrative portion of the agenda. Item 3.1. 3.1 is the monthly adjustment of electric rates, the retail rates, due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustment by TVA, which is done monthly. Mr. Gardner, have you got any good news this month?
I do. We're going down 0.7%.
My wife's gonna love you for that.
0.7%. All right. Is there a motion this be
So moved.
approved? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Nobody wants him to go up on rates.
No, sir. Keep it
Call the
right
roll,
there.
please.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Gregg,
Aye.
Trotter.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right. Mr. Riddle, our gas director, what about it?
Purchase gas adjustment of 7%. However, this is starting our 50% reduction in residential rates.
So the rate is,
9% on our small commercial.
okay, so your rate is actually going up 7%
Yeah, purchase gas adjustment.
per, okay. But this is the time when the usage is up, that we do the 50,
We're doing the $1 million discount back to our ratepayers.
Okay.
It's 3
So you're-
months. We
Oh,
hope
okay.
possibly longer, but
Okay.
for 3 months, so.
so you're easing the pain.
Easing the pain.
All right.
However.
Don't give us any bad news now.
With all done at the January rates that I'm getting from FERC,
Mhm.
they're $1 less than they were in December.
Well, that's good.
I hope there's good news next month.
Okay. Robert was out, I believe, last time, and, you know, his rates were, had climbed a little bit. So I see he came back with, you really competing with you. So y'all, you know, y'all got to stay competitive now.
That's right.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Trotter.
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Gregg, Snyder.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Okay, 3.3 is to discuss and possibly act on an appointment to the Beer Board. Is this the at-large, or which one is this? Is this yours?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right.
Mike Wilhoit's going to be taking Mr. Long.
Mike Wilhoit, retired police chief, Mike Wilhoit. I guess we could consider him. Is there a motion that?
So moved. So
All right.
moved.
Second. And a second. All right. Any discussion? If you favor Mr. Wilhoit being appointed to the Beer Board, please say aye when your name is called. If you're opposed, vote no.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
Trotter.
Aye.
Gregg.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Discuss and possibly act now on an appointment to the Housing Authority Board. That's item 3.4. All right. this is from Mr. Trotter's ward, and he is recommending that Mr. Robert Taylor be appointed to that position, succeeding Randy Henderson, who has resigned. Is this the Robert Taylor who drove the school bus for a long time? All right, that's a fine gentleman. All right, so you're recommending him, nominating him. You're making the motion. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Head.
Yes.
Carneal.
Aye.
Snyder. Aye. Trotter.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Brigg.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right, 3.5 is to discuss and possibly act on the installation of an additional traffic light at the intersection of Watson Road and Tom Austin Highway, which is, of course, US 431 South. Who is making the presentation on that? Mr. Allen Ellis? Is there a motion on this, first of all?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Allen Ellis, our Public Works Director, will speak to this.
Okay. TDOT has come to me and they've asked some questions. We have been meeting on several things on this road. They now have a traffic light set up for William A. Batson Parkway and one at the hospital. But they have told us at the same time at Watson Road and Tom Austin that it meets all the criteria for a traffic light. I had a little reservation about saying yes or no on it because of that's going to be 3 additional traffic lights on that road, additional from what we have now, and that might drive people the other direction. They allowed us to make the decision which way we want to go. Now, if the light is installed by TDOT, Robert's people take it over from there. We have to do all the maintenance and also the operations of it. So it can be changed to where it would be green all the time unless a vehicle pulls up on the Watson Road side. So I'm throwing it out at you tonight. It would cost, if TDOT doesn't install it and we have to several years down the road, it would be, I'm estimating $150,000 to $200,000 to install it. And I give you an example, the one we put in at 22nd, the city had to pay for that one, 22nd in Tom Austin, and it ran approximately $125,000. So we met, 3 engineers, police chief, electric and planning all met, and the majority recommends to let TDOT go ahead and install it, and we would just have to control it with Robert's people making the adjustments to where the what am I trying to say, the frequency, the functions, because it will have loops there, and it also will have personnel where individuals can walk across the road and things like pedestrian crosswalks and things like that. So it's up to you whether you let them install it now or somewhere down the road we will install it if it needs to be at these dollars that we would have to pay for it.
All right, but if they include it with the project, I guess this is waiting till they widen the road?
Yes.
All right.
It's in that project.
Then they fully pay for that installation?
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's all, the road will be a 5-lane section, very much like it's going to Greenbrier. That's a 5-lane section. We'll have sidewalks too, so with that you'll have pedestrian crosswalks and you have all the devices for that. So, so majority of the group agreed that we probably need to go ahead and install these. I had reservations, but that's what the group decided.
All right. We have a motion on the second. Now, time for questions.
Alan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sort of concerned about, the school will open in August, right?
I'm not sure.
The elementary school is scheduled to open this August, am I correct?
That's right, it's scheduled.
Okay, will there be any kind of lights there by then?
I'm sure it would not be.
That's my concern, because it's a crazy place to try to come out, you know.
I'm not even sure when this project's going to be lit. I've heard this year. But even if it was, the lights would probably go in close to the end of the project. And it's going to be a pretty massive project.
Okay, that's kind of my concern.
If they were installed, you could, if say you just want to leave them on caution, you could leave them on caution until need to be to turn them in where they be full operational?
Well, you know, they're required by law, we have to leave them so many days on caution. But what we generally do, Bobby, is some of these, I give you an example out there across from Payne Brothers. We try to keep that light on green all the time unless something pulls up from the side. And Robert, you want to address any of this? You've got a lot of lights like that in town, haven't you?
Yeah, just about all our lights are loop activated to where you bias it on the main street, say Memorial Boulevard is the main drag, so it's green bias, so every light is going to be automatically green unless somebody pulls in on the side street.
Okay.
Tom Austin will be the same way. It'd be green biased all the way through Tom Austin until somebody pulled up, you know, on a 22nd or Watson Road or wherever.
Thank you.
All right, you get your question answered. Go ahead,
I'd like to
Clay.
make an amendment.
All right, sir.
In addition to approval of the stoplights in question on item 3.5, I want to add an amendment that we also implement that all lights begin blinking from the period of time 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. on Memorial Boulevard in Tom Austin, except for the intersections of Memorial Boulevard and 5th, which would be right down here below the jail, and the intersection of Memorial and Tom Austin, which is outside Captain D's. I want that amendment added to passage of this.
All right, you got it. All right, you're making,
What's the times again?
11 p.m. to 5 a.m.
all right, and you're wanting that on all traffic lights on Memorial with the exception of 5th and Memorial?
I'll read it again. Add an amendment to the 3.5 that if passed, we will also include changing all the lights on Memorial Boulevard and Tom Austin to blink between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. except the intersections at Memorial and 5th, which is down here below the jail, and Memorial and Tom Austin, it's out by Captain D's.
Okay, that's your amendment. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Head.
Yes,
Any discussion on the amendment now?
yes, sir. Mr. Gardner, did we discuss that once before? Could you give some clarity on that particular proposal?
Well, we did discuss it before and it was turned down, but Clay, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't quite the same locations.
That's the exact same locations. The reason it was turned down is because Mr. Gardner argued that we already have a system in place. We are all aware there's a system in place that makes light blink when it comes up to the intersection. And the traffic engineer, in my opinion, was biased to what staff wanted him to say in that report.
I'm thinking at the time we first considered that, we had some loops that weren't actually working. I know down on 5th, it was just set on a fixed time.
The lights in front of the bowling alley, the lights in front of the auto parts store, and the lights in front of Wendy's, all three of those are in sync. If all three of those, they all have to work together. You can't separate those, right. Not one or the other. I mean,
they're all on the same control.
That's all in the same stretch anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all on the same control.
That was the issue with those three lights.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you see that? Is that a workable? That's what I'm asking you and Alan. I mean, you are the professional, so I'm asking you that.
I'm still not understanding the benefit of it, the purpose of it, because if you're biased on Memorial anyway, you're not holding up traffic on the side.
I'm just trying to do what I see every other city do. All around us, the lights do this. I know that we've got the things in the ground that sense the cars pull up, but if you're on a motorcycle, they don't change. And it's almost imperative that if you're approaching a stoplight, somebody's going to get there and make it turn red on you, and then they pull out, and then you're going to have to wait for it. It's just not necessary when the traffic gets this scarce at night. And it doesn't cost anything. Just go out there and tweak it. This is not a major cost. No new purchase of equipment. It's already there. We can do it.
All right, you understand what he's proposing. He wants to add an amendment to this proposal to affect the lights that are well, you're just dealing with the one light on 431, the proposed light?
Well, all of the lights on Memorial Boulevard and Tom Austin,
and Tom
except
Austin.
Memorial and Fifth and Memorial and Tom Austin.
Okay.
Captain D's and
All right.
everybody else.
Now, if you favor this, any other questions before we vote? Jeff?
Chief Thompson, how much traffic is there at 11 o'clock at night?
Well, obviously, it depends on, excuse me, which location. It depends on whether it's a weekend or whether it's a holiday or whether it's summer. There are a lot of different factors there, but significantly less traffic after 11 p.m. I actually come from a place where that was not unusual, where they took the main stretches, the Main Street stretches and things like that and put those on flash at night. It can be tweaked if you try this and you say, well, that doesn't work well at 11 o'clock, maybe we should go to midnight, or we can change it. It's a matter of changing and programming to make that happen. So I do come from a place where they did that in the evenings. They did not find any major problems with it. It reduced the number of people stopping, having to start. That has an impact on noise, on pollution, a variety of things. So I'm one of those people that looks at those things and says, well, what have we got to lose? We can always fix it. We can always change it. So I didn't really answer your question other than it depends on the circumstance. But usually between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., traffic is minimal.
It sounds like you're saying that it can work, though.
I've seen it work in other places, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, back then.
Electric lux traffic now, how would it affect those shift changes around 11 o'clock?
Can't tell you that because
That's
I don't
what
have
I'm
the numbers. I'd have to go take a look at the specific intersections.
You do
to
have
see.
that. You do have that as an issue at those three lights particularly.
Like the main shift change are 3 to 11, so when traffic's leaving Electrolux, they're not going to be backing up waiting for one car making the light change. If all the people's going to Clarksville, they can almost just flow right through. I mean, a brief stop and go. They're not waiting for the light. I think it'd be beneficial.
All right, any other questions before we vote? Hearing none, we're voting on the amendment only. If you favor this amendment, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote no.
Carneal,
No.
Head,
Yes.
Sneed,
Aye.
Trotter,
Abstain.
abstain. Snyder,
No.
Gregg, Hubbard,
No.
tie vote, 3 yes, 3 no, and 1 abstain, so that makes it a fail vote.
Fail, we're on the main motion.
Mayor, could I make a suggestion? I think really the flashing lights are, I think everybody's open to what we may want to do. I just think that's really best as a separate topic. The item on the agenda is simply to let the TDOT know whether we're going to take the extra signal or not. I think everybody's open as far as what we can do to make traffic flow better, and I think that, may be a really good suggestion.
I see it other places
Mr.
as well.
Sneed's part, but we really just need to give answer to TDOT,
well,
maybe get a little
well, that-
workshop maybe to discuss traffic.
That's just an amendment. We're back on the main motion now.
Could we bring it up next month?
It don't matter. They're not going to do it. I've tried this twice. I don't know what's wrong with it.
All right, we're back to the main motion. If you favor the state paying for this traffic light at Tom Austin Highway and Watson Road, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote no.
Gregg,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Sneed,
Aye.
Schneider, Carneal,
Aye.
Trotter,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
pass 7-0.
All right, I'm going to declare about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and pick up with a presentation from Retail Strategies.
At 9 o'clock. But I think the traffic lights are blinking.
For the Retail Strategies to come do your presentation, and the members of the board will be more comfortable and be able to see better if you move out into the audience for this time. Thank you. You're going to be better. Yes, that's the only reason.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Certainly appreciate you moving around for our presentation, and there is a printout on your desk as well. So thank you for your time and allowing us to be here. We're really excited about the program we're going to present to you. Retail Strategies is basically a consultant firm, and we work for municipalities throughout the country and help them bring in retailers and restaurants. So we want to talk a little bit about the program and just look at a potential partnership with you. I'll tell you some things that are happening that it's really positive as the retail world is back. Last year, same-store sales were up about 4.5%. It's looking like this year they're going to be up about 4.5%. We're seeing about 40,000 new units that are going to come online as far as all the retailers that are publicly traded who have said that they were going to go out and build new stores. There's going to be about 40,000 new units this year. So we're very excited about the opportunities in the retail world. And the way our company basically came together is that, you know, in the past, municipalities said, let's really just focus on industrial recruitment. Let's go after those high-paying jobs, and the retail will take care of itself. Well, during the recession, then I think a lot of municipalities looked around and said, you know, we really do need to pay attention to this and look at a holistic view of our economic development, understanding that having a vibrant retail community with good restaurants really helps you on that industrial recruitment, helps you with your quality of life, and helps with all those things. So our Retail Strategies came together about 4 years ago, and it came out of two different firms. One was an analytics firm who just runs all the data, and the other was a brokerage house, basically a retail site selector. And they formed a partnership and formed Retail Strategies. So we're going to talk a little bit about our process as we engage with the community. So Laura, I'll let you go ahead and cover that.
While Lacey's changing the slides, I'll go ahead and start. So what we do is a threefold approach. We come in and we do all of the market analysis. We run all the reports. We have about 7 different subscriptions with over 500,000 different variables. So pretty much any and every type of report that we can run, we do that, and all of the data is on demand. So anytime that anybody from the brokerage community or developer or a local entrepreneur needs a report run, we can do that for them. Also, anything for industrial, because data is data, so that information can be used for industrial as well. But we focus on retail, so after we run all the analytics, we create a strategic plan. So in that plan, very simply, we identify the retailers that are missing in your market that you would be able to sustain without cannibalizing your existing retailers. And then thirdly, we actually implement the plan by recruiting the retail on your behalf, as opposed to just giving you a stack of papers and data as a paperweight to sit and collect dust in your office. We actually help execute this plan. So of course, your advantage here is the increased tax revenue, and I believe you get at a local collection 2.75% of sales tax revenues. Job creation, industrial recruitment, and improved quality of life, and we'll expand on all of these. So this is a peer analysis, one of the reports that we run that's really helpful. We basically identify cities and counties that demographically look like you across the region. So we look at what retailers they have that are doing well that we believe would do well here. So it just kind of gives us a reason to justify to the retailer of why they should be in the market. And we help, it helps us come up with a retail prospect list, part of what helps us there.
And all of our subscriptions, we have about 7 different subscriptions with 500,000 different variables. There are hundreds of different reports we run for you, so we're just on a high level giving you a sampling of some of those. This is one that's consumer behavior report, and this is a way that we use these reports to not just go out and recruit new retail, but also help with the existing businesses. So they can take a look at, this is an example of a furniture report. They can look at their inventory and see if maybe they need to start selling more sofa beds and less recliners, if that's what the marketplace is saying they're purchasing more of. So we have these for all the different categories, and you know, right now there's a big push, and it's basically called big data. So in the past it used to be pretty exciting to just get a little bit of demographic information, and retailers really just kind of want to know your population and your income. Well, now it's a lot more about finding their core customer so that they can estimate their sales volumes and see if they're going to be profitable in your market. So we take on a case-by-case basis those prospects and pull out the variables that are specific to the products they're selling and help make a case for you using that. We put all this data in an online project management software called Basecamp, and anytime that you want to access any report, as Laura mentioned, we can run it. We put it here. We've proposed a 3-year agreement with you because retail does take some time. From the time you identify a prospect, start calling on them, getting all the players together, the information, going through that whole process can be anywhere from 18 to 36 months. So we have a 3-year proposal with you, and throughout that entire 3 years, we put all the information that we've collected here in Basecamp. That way, if any of your team members change, they know everything that's going on with the project, and any of our team members change, we can stay up to speed on it. We have about 25 people in retail strategies. The majority of them are licensed brokers. I personally have about 10 years of experience in this industry, so what we're constantly doing as a company is just making sure that we're servicing our clients by putting the right people in the right points of contact, and Basecamp is a good way of making sure that our entire team can see everything that's happening as we progress with you.
This is the gap analysis, which is also known as a leakage report, as some of you might have heard before, but this is a really critical component to our strategic plan. So this basically quantifies the amount of dollars that your residents are spending outside of the city limits. So let's say your residents are leaving to buy groceries or clothing or shoes. So we're able to break that down by sector and see what your biggest gaps are to further help make a case for why retailers should be here. And this also helps us create the retail prospect list. So with the prospect list, this is not a static list, but more of a starting point. So each retailer has a specific set of criteria that they look for, whether it be population, median household income, drive times, radius rings, education levels, etc. So we look at who's expanding and what their criteria is versus what you guys have to offer, and we really just play matchmaker. We connect the dots for you. So this list is constantly changing because retail is constantly changing, and we're constantly keeping up with the trends and adding and taking away from that list, really. And here is an example of a property catalog. So part of the strategic plan, we do a boots on the ground tour. So we come, we drive the market, we look at your city the way that a broker would look at a shopping center, and we identify which sites would be best for retail, because retail follows rooftops and retailers also cluster. So we identify which sites would be best for new development, redevelopment. We look at empty storefronts, we look at downtowns, and they all have different approaches when it comes to recruitment.
And this is an example of an aerial map, because this industry, they really want to tell a picture quickly, and a lot of it is how do you speak that retail language and get your foot in the door to be able to speak to the right people, right points of contact, and deliver the right message. And a lot of it's done through an aerial map. And so these are the retailers. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but the retailers on the rooftops, traffic counts, schools, employers, all those things. And then we've carved out zones of new development and redevelopment. And this is a portion of what we would do for you. And then we develop a marketing flyer, and this is the exterior. It's an 11 by 17. The interior has the aerial map. The exterior has all those key variables that are most requested in the retail world. We take this marketing flyer and go to all the different trade shows. It's ICSC, which is International Council of Shopping Centers. This is our leading trade organization. They have about 70,000 members, have about a dozen different shows that we go to, and at each of these shows, then we're out there being an advocate for the city and talking about the opportunities that are here. And the goal is to create focus, create awareness, and just make them understand your market in that retail language. And obviously you understand, we've talked about it already, but the benefit to you and having that proactive recruitment is the jobs it creates, the sales tax revenue, creating that vibrant community, and just overall quality of life. So I'm going to hop through a few different success stories, and these just vary in different sizes. These towns do, but we work with Hohenwald, Tennessee, just an example of a community of about 3,500. And this is a quote directly from the real estate director at Hibbett saying, "Thank you, helped me get this through the system." And so Hibbett is now open in Hohenwald, Tennessee. This is one in Spring Hill, Tennessee, where we worked directly with a developer who had a project that he thought might die, and his numbers didn't work. What the retailers were willing to pay and his site cost just didn't line up, and he got towards the end of the project and realized there was a gap. And through brainstorming, we figured out that if he could do if the city would allow a parking variance, that would save him about $350,000. He could rearrange that site plan and get them all on there and keep the project alive. And so we all worked together and worked as a liaison in that negotiation and kept the project going. And they have about 4 national tenants going in this project. Several success stories in Tullahoma, Tennessee, variety of them. Couple quotes here from, one of them's from Joann's Fabrics, and they took Tullahoma to Real Estate Committee. And Real Estate Committee is a group of people in a room that are looking at a PowerPoint presentation who may or may not ever visit that city. And based on the data that's provided to them, they either approve it or deny it. So they had taken, Joann's had looked at Tullahoma and it had been killed as a project 2 times prior to. And then when we got involved and worked with the city to get all the information properly presented, they approved it. Now Joann's is doing an incredible job in Tullahoma, blowing all their sales projections away. Also helped with the Dollar Tree and a relocation. So they were 8,000 square feet. Now they have 12,000 square feet in a different site, maximizing their sales, and backfilled that existing Dollar Tree space with a Planet Fitness. So it's not just recruiting in new. If there's a higher and better use or a repositioning that we can help with, we want to be involved in that. So those are a few success stories. And one thing I really want to highlight here are the jobs. We've talked about it a lot. And retail, the perception is that retail jobs are not high-paying jobs at all. And they're not if you take all retail jobs in the entire marketplace. But if you take retail jobs of those full-time employees between 25 to 54, retail jobs actually pay a little bit more than non-retail jobs. But the reason it's not equated the same is because they're part-time, they're seasonal, they're temporary. So those type of jobs are necessary and need to exist. Those are the low-paying jobs, but there's a lot of good high-paying jobs in retail. This is a report by the National Retail Federation that goes through and studies that. Sampling of different retailers and how many people they might employ. An average fast food is going to employ anywhere from 20 to 30 people. An average junior box will employ anywhere from about 30 to 50 people, and then the larger the box is, the more they'll employ. Grocery stores can be up to 300 people. So it really does. Retail is economic development, does create those jobs, and it is very important to focus on that front. And I'll let Laura go ahead and talk about the sales tax revenue.
Yeah, so with a local collection of 2.75%, we look at, you've got your bigger guys like Walmart. They do on average $68 million. So your local tax collection there on average for the year is $1.8 million. If you just take one fast food restaurant, they do between $1 and $2 million a year in sales. So you guys would be collecting around $55,000 a year just for one fast food restaurant. And of course, we would look to recruit more than just that. So that's just one example of the ROI there. Did you have anything to add to that?
No, that covers it. So what our contract does over that 3-year period is that first year is getting the plan together and going out and prospecting, a lot of calls and just basically planting seeds. And then we keep the information updated and keep it going. And as Laura mentioned earlier, this plan, we have to adapt to the marketplace, adapt to the changing trends. I would say retail is probably the most dynamic and fastest changing of all the commercial real estate sectors. So we are just keeping on top of it for those continuing years. And you really start to see the results of your investment in year 2 and 3. And then in year 4, you have the option to continue and renew at that same rate that we've locked in at year 3. So what we have proposed to you is a county-wide proposal, and it would be 4 cities within the county, and it's broken down, it can be broken up according to population as far as the contribution you would make financially to this program. So that's all we have. Certainly want to answer any questions you might have or provide any additional information.
Yes, ma'am, I've got a question.
Sure.
What was your name?
Lacey Beasley.
Lacey.
Yes.
Lacey, we have a more than fully staffed Chamber of Commerce here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
We've got people in that Chamber of Commerce who, for years, we've been paying to do what I thought that you're proposing that you want to do. Mm-hmm. What special skills or qualifications or access does your firm have that the Chamber of Commerce and all of their degreed people and access, what do you have that they don't?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. And what we have are contacts. I have 10 years in this business, in this industry, and so there are a lot of contacts in the industry. With each one of these retail prospects, there's in most of them, and it all depends, but there's a real estate manager, and then there might be a director, and then there's a broker, and then there's a preferred developer. So there's a variety of different people that you would want to contact for any one of those prospects. It's very hard to keep up with. They're constantly changing, and we stay on top of that. Going to all these ICSC shows, if we go to a dozen of those, if you were to take each one of those and say, if your chamber director went to all these shows, that would probably cost in excess of $10,000 for just attending those shows and meeting with the right people and being an advocate at those shows. Then the other part is all the software subscriptions. So all that data that we have and run, if your chamber were to go purchase all those, by the time you start adding up all the resources it takes to be able to provide what we're providing, it's very difficult. What we found in a lot of cases, and we work on recruitment of new businesses. We have a lot for retention. Chambers do an incredible job with business retention, networking, events. A lot of times there's a chamber membership, and where we're a little bit different than that is we look at what's best for the community overall, regardless of if that person, looking at if they're a chamber member or not, sometimes that ties the hands of the chamber. I used to work at the Dixon County Chamber of Commerce for years, and some of our decisions were based on membership or not, and we're a little bit relieved from that. And we can get our foot in the door in places. Sometimes whenever somebody works directly with the city, then sometimes it's very difficult to get a return call because there are people in the industry that don't trust. If you work directly with the city, they think it's going to be loose lips or time wasters, and so they tend to not be as proactive in returning those calls, and we're able to get our foot in the door there.
Well, that last part about working with the city, the question was between you and the Chamber of Commerce, not between the retailer and the city. Is there any guarantees of a return on our investment?
Unfortunately, we can't guarantee anything, and the reason is because we don't control the property, what they're charging for the property, and we don't control the marketplace and where they're specifically going to choose. But what we can control is everything in the middle, that marketing message, the data that's provided, pushing a deal forward, making sure that we're almost a pest to move that up and make you more competitive for them. I think every community we work with says they know a lot more about themselves after this process than they did before. And in most cases, we do have successes. I have a sheet here I'm happy to hand out. It has a variety of different success stories, and we also have them on our website.
You're talking about the handout?
Yeah, it's a different sheet, but in the interior, there's a lot of different examples of where we worked with communities, and or I'll just lay them around up here, where we worked with communities and added value to the process.
I saw some examples in here.
Okay.
And there's a lot more on our website as well.
Absolutely.
Now, would you disagree that these corporations have internal people that are seeking to expand their businesses without having to be recruited, that there's businesses that do that?
Yeah, so we end up working with them, and what happens is, if a retailer comes out and says, I'm going to do 40 stores in the country this year, what happens is they probably vet out thousands of sites. And what we want to do is look at, okay, what can we do to make sure your site raises to the top? And a lot of them hire it's basically a broker, a tenant rep broker would go out and they look within the whole state of Tennessee, what sites do we have and how are we going to compete with the rest of the country? And we just want to work with them to raise that up and make it as easy as possible on them. A lot of them are commission based, so they take the easiest deal and the lowest hanging fruit. Sometimes the lowest hanging fruit are the ones where they have the most information, or when they have extra people involved, which is where we try to get involved and help them where we can.
Other questions? Yes, this street I might have to kind of go, we have to revitalize Robinson County. What's the difference in Fargo? What's the difference? You going more industry than she's going retail, you going industry?
Well, actually, Realize Robinson Future is a group of investors who have put in money to fund economic development initiatives. And as a matter of fact, Realize Robinson Future investors will consider being a partner at this county right now, along with the Robinson County Economic Development that are proposing to put in the funding.
This is where the speaker part comes in, because, this is already a economic investment. So this is where I'm sorry, mother, okay?
But I think, as Lacey mentioned, and this is something that, Mr. Smith's right, we've been trying to recruit retailers. The city paid a pretty good sum of money a number of years ago to get some data so that we could go out and recruit new retailers. Unfortunately, that came right about the time of the recession, and so that data really didn't get your value out of that because people weren't expanding during that period of time. I have been going to the ICSC show in Atlanta for the last couple of years. I attended the one that happens here in Tennessee and Kentucky every other year. And what I'm finding is exactly what you said. It is very difficult to get in the door with the people who make the decisions. You're representing just one community. The advantage they have is they represent a lot of communities across the country, so they have a little clout to get in the door.
Well, God, I'm the public person. Now, that's my responsibility. These things are real close, so that's why I have to go along with Brother Steve on that.
Any other questions by the alderman?
I don't have any questions, but I've got some statements once we start.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, what other discussion is there on this matter? Clay, you said you had something else, a comment or something.
Yes, Mayor, I feel that we already pay for enough qualified and competent people to do what we're being proposed to do by the subcontractors who are trying to, well, I guess the Chamber of Commerce talked about partnership. It's basically subcontracting out some of the stuff that they do. I think we're already paying the qualified and competent people to do that. I know that I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I mean, that's a pretty good business that they've got there, that they can get some airtime before a board, because it would, I mean, it's almost like you're compelled to vote yes, because if you don't, you're going to be in the paper, Alderman so-and-so voted against a study to recruit businesses. That might be what it prints out in the paper, but I think we're already paying for that service.
Well, that's a fair statement if that's what you choose to say. That's no problem with your opinion on that. All right, other comments on this matter?
I almost want to move for deferment because I'm not really, you know.
Did we take a motion? There is no motion.
There's no motion.
This is a presentation.
Well, my thing is, you know, it's, and I have to kind of piggyback, but I might be on the same page with your brother. You know,
glad I'm sitting down.
You know, we're paying this, and you know, see, one thing too, I mean, you know, no guarantee, no disrespect, but you know, no guarantee that it's going to work, you know, and I just, that's a nice pinch, and we got a lot of things that we have to take care of, okay?
Okay, other comments, Jeff?
Have you talked with these other cities already? You're proposing this being 4 cities.
We've had 2 meetings now with the other cities that we've been discussing this with, and we're going to be taking this presentation to each of them as well. We've talked to the representatives, Mr. Nutting, Cole, Schneider, Harnell, heard the presentation to see if they wanted to bring it to you. We've done the same thing with the other cities, and we'll be taking it to their boards as well.
That's Greenbrier, White House, and...
Cross Plains and Cooper County.
Okay. All right, we appreciate the presentation, and are there anybody else have something on your mind about this now? Paul?
Well,
Well, I'd like to say one thing. This year, we'll be paying off the debt in the North Industrial Park, and whether it's this project or it's another project, we are getting hotel motel tax in the county, and it has to be used for economic development. So after this fiscal year, the $40,000+ we've got, other than the Chamber of Commerce, $16,000 that we give to them, we don't really have a place to put that money. So we need some sort of economic development program or tourism program that can fund.
Well, we can certainly weigh that as we consider our options on
Yes.
that, and that will give you an opportunity to decide what you think is in the best interest. We do thank you again for the presentation. All right, as we move on now to 3.7, discuss and possibly act on a proposal from Carol Croft of Croft and Associates for the acquisition of easements for the water line from the Logan Todd Regional Water Commission's plant in Guthrie, Kentucky to the North Industrial Park in Springfield. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion now?
I'm excited about it.
There, it's certainly encouraging.
Yes, sir.
If there's no
Will this be paid
discussion.
out of bonds?
It will be.
All right, anything further? Call the roll, please.
Trotter.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Carnell.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Craig.
Aye.
Snyder. Aye. Pass 7-0.
Okay, 3.8, discuss a procedure for handling DVD recordings of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Mr. Sneed, I think you asked for this. You want to make a motion on that?
Move to approve, to move to discuss and possible take action on 3.8.
I second it.
Okay. All right.
Well, I don't want to always do this. I want to see somebody else stand up and take some positions on
Okay,
this.
I'll take a position. Can I go first? First position, the first position is this. Number one, sir, by being an alderman in the city of Springfield, all aldermen are supposed to evaluate the city manager's evaluation. Number two, we dropped the ball because he's supposed to do it every year so that we can see all of the goals that we directed him to do. He can explain them, we can grade him on. Okay. Number three, he called all of us and we agreed.
Mayor, point of order.
No point of order. Let me finish. About editing that particular situation on the tape. So really, there is no violations. Number four, it's a waste of time trying to rehash it. So to me, that's irresponsible, automatic disposition. And I'll close on that.
I'm not going to be the only one that tries to do something, man. I want some other people to stand up and see what happened and take a stand. So it's on the floor. Somebody
All
else
right,
needs
is
to
there
do it.
any other discussion on this matter? We have a motion. We have a second.
Can I say something?
Yes, Jed.
The way I'm understanding this 3.8 is simply whatever's being recorded is going to be kept as part of the minutes. And
That's the way this reads, yes. It says, unless it's more than this, it's secure, it's to provide for the security of that recording and to declare it as an official record to be included with written minutes. As it stands now, the audio tapes which we have is what we take the minutes from. The audio tapes are preserved, correct? And how long have you been city clerk?
Approximately 14, 15 years.
And you've kept them all yours?
Yes, sir.
And the lady before you, Janice Fry, did the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then they are converted to minutes, and that's the official record. That's what we go by. just as a court stenographer does in a court proceedings, that type of thing. Or at the Board of Education, which, for example, doesn't even do the television thing. But we consider the audio tape the official recording. That's what's been there the longest, that's what's been retained and so forth. Now this other issue was something else. So if you want to do this, I mean, Mr. Sneed, is this the entire request that we preserve these DVDs and declare it an official record?
Well, I'm not ready to make a motion on it. I'm ready to discuss it a little bit more.
I thought you made a motion.
It's on the floor for discussion, possible motion. What Ms. Watson said about the tapes, what you asked her about the recordings, they have been edited in the past. Ms. Watson knows they've been edited in the past because I made a note on one of the cassettes that there was items that were missing on a cassette years ago when I was looking for something that was controversial. Went back to look at it, played it, sat right over there and played it for almost 2 hours trying to find it. Back and forth, back and forth. It wasn't there. There's items on the agenda. It stopped just as clear as day on one and picked up somewhere else. It was missing. That's not credible the way it's done. And I've got my handwriting on the cassette tape that's showing that missing item. Now, it's happened in the past, and I'm trying to do something to correct what I know has happened. Whether y'all believe it or not, I know it has.
Read your motion then.
I'm ready for somebody else to take a stand.
Read your motion. I second it for you. Go ahead and
It's
read
on
it.
the floor, we're discussing. Somebody else can make a motion. I want to see some other people spying up around here.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, Pam.
My question is, when the public comes in and asks for public record, and the public record request has been made, what do we give them?
We have a procedure in place where they'll make a request to me. I have 7 days to respond.
Okay.
I will take that request and give it to whichever department it's for, and they will give me the response, and I will contact the requester and give them
public record, I guess, for this meeting.
I'm talking open records. Well, I would treat it the same way.
Are you giving the minutes like we're voting on?
I'm giving, yes.
After we voted on them?
Yes.
Not the audio?
If they request an audio, we'll have to make a copy and give them a copy of it, because that's a public record. I have done that.
So we give them the audio and we give them the minutes that we have approved?
Yes.
Because at times it
has to be approved.
Well,
we're humans and we make errors, and it has to be voted on, right?
Let me point out something with that, though. The minutes reflect action taken on different items. They are motions, there are seconds, there is the discussion is recorded, but the discussion is not part of the formal minutes.
But you would give them the audio?
Yeah. Just as we as the television station had the recording of that other, we let them have it. I appeared on television. We told them, how we conducted business and that the audio tape was the official record. But what I'm saying is the part that was edited out of this thing that has been talked about,
Okay,
so
we're
most
talking
people
about
are tired
two
of
different
it. The part that was edited there is something that would not have been in the minutes anyway. It was a statement. It was a roughly 7 minute reply.
But we're talking about making this DVD the official record.
Yes, if I understand Mr. Sneed's motion.
That's what you're proposing,
I don't think it's on DVD. Isn't it on the SD card, Walter?
Hard drive, computer hard drive.
Right. So it's not even a CD.
And we do not televise work sessions.
But if we do start retaining that media, part of the ordinance, what my motion is for discussion is, how are you going to secure this?
Clay, I trust the people that work for the city.
I do too, for the most part, unless it's something that I know in the past has had a controversial issue and I've gone back to look at it and it was a matter of vote and it wasn't there.
Well, if a mistake was made, it was made.
Bobby Lehman was here then.
Well,
Connie knows about it. My
maybe.
handwriting is on the tape.
But right
Anybody
now,
want to go back and look at it?
we're going to go back to this motion, and we're going to treat it for what it says. Discuss a procedure for handling DVD recording of Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings, its security to prevent destruction, and declaring it an official record. Is that what you want to be voted on?
I've discussed, I'm not making a motion, somebody else can.
You've already made it.
You already made the
I
motion.
made the motion to discuss and possible take action.
Well, that's what it says, though. That's what was said in here.
And
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Mr. Hubbard, you seconded.
And I discussed, you said, make a statement. I made a statement for the motive of why you even brought this issue. Now, why don't you just go and man up? What's your motive behind bringing this issue?
It's for the integrity.
It's all because...
It's integrity, Mr. Hubbard.
Well, the integrity...
You asked me a question.
One at a time.
You asked me a question. There's nothing wrong with what Mr. Nutting said. Nothing at all. It's just the fact that they took the liberty to do something and destroy city property. We paid for that. That's an issue that if a fireman went out there and he doesn't like a hose because of its particular color and start chopping it up, that's destroying the city property. He doesn't want to use it anymore. He doesn't like, that's kind of an extreme example, but it's destroying city property. We paid for it. They destroyed it. I don't think they have the authority to do that.
Now, you've stated your point. You've got a motion on the floor. The way I see it at this point, we're going to vote on this as it's stated here. Madam Attorney? All right. And we have a second.
You have a second.
You have seconded it.
I second it.
All right.
But I want to say something.
Say it.
The integrity of what I stated was the reason why this gentleman even made it 7 minutes, because we dropped the ball, okay?
That's true.
And he was responding.
We will make this year when we do this.
We are going to make sure we evaluate him this year on time.
I want to add, go ahead, Ann.
Ms. Watson, do we still have the audio tape from that meeting?
I believe we do.
They're played on Smoky Mountain.
And how long
We
do we
gave it to
keep-
them to play.
Okay, so how long do we keep those tapes?
That I do not know.
It's
I have
perpetuity.
a question. I think what y'all discussing is something that happened in the past. I think this body be trying to be moved forward. Me and Jeff had, that's something that happened in the past. We wasn't even on this body at the time. And I think that, if you already got this in order, I think you should just go with it and in the future, exercise it as it's already written.
Well, we voted on a matter in the December. The discussion goes back to the meeting in October, Mr. Trotter.
That's what I said. That's
The
past.
November meeting, Mr. Hubbard and I were in Texas attending the National League of Cities thing. So there was a little discussion about it, and they deferred it to the December meeting. The December meeting, we voted on something that was more or less a scolding of Mr. Nutting and that type of thing. And that was voted down. Now, this month, we're confronted with dealing with DVD issues again. I think we've said it. Let me point out again. I understand what you're saying. Maybe it was the wrong thing to do for him to have that edited out. But that is something that wouldn't even have been put in the minutes, period. Because there was no action. It was his personal response to what you had said and a summary of that. And that's it.
Where do you draw the line, Mr. Carnell? If you get away with this, where do you draw the line the next time?
This is how I draw it. When I did my evaluation of the city manager, and you didn't.
Thank you.
I'm ready to replace the city manager, so I'm
Well,
not
then
gonna
you may bring
evaluate
that
somebody
up.
I'm ready to replace.
You may do that.
And I may, and I exercise that, so don't hold it against me.
I'm not holding it against you, but I'm tired of your going in the back door to try to get something voted on month after month after
If you
month.
don't like politics, Mr. Mayor, you're in the wrong business.
I've been here for 20 years, and I enjoy serving this city.
So don't
And we're not
criticize
going to
me
make
for my
that.
actions.
I've offered to vote for this to be voted on, and we're ending this discussion unless anybody's got something else to say.
I have something to say real quick.
I
have something to say real quick.
Call for question.
You have a misunderstanding. You cannot personally order the city manager around. The charter says it takes 7 of us And so you need to get that in your head.
James,
sir.
that is correct. We have authority only in
As a
these
collective
meetings
body.
as we vote. The city manager serves at our pleasure. When you can get a majority vote to replace this gentleman who's been here 19-plus years and at his other city for 17, then that's your privilege to vote.
Well, you can cheerlead.
Right now, and I don't want any remarks about that kind of thing. It's here to vote for. If you favor Mr. Sneed's motion, vote aye. If you are opposed, no. Motion has been called.
Snyder?
No.
Carneal?
No.
Hubbard?
No.
Sneed?
Abstain.
Head?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Trotter?
No.
Gregg?
Abstain.
Failed, 1 to 4, and 2 abstain.
All right, let's move on now to item 3.9. This is to discuss and possibly take action on the allocation of bond proceeds for the animal shelter design and construction. In other words, if we don't proceed with the use of this money for the animal shelter, which we have turned down, then that, of course, the bond proceeds you have to spend. Once that money is borrowed, it has to be expended. So we need to decide on what other item on our deferred list is something worthy of the consideration. Let's get a motion. Got a motion?
I got a motion.
Got a second? Is there a second that we discuss this? Motion dies for lack of a second. 3.10 is Mr. Lee Masters' report on the EPA's administrative order on consent.
Contract 2A actually began back in October 10. We had some concerns with in situ form about contract 1A that took so long to delay. They wasted, I can't say wasted, they did not get started for about a month, and we raised that as an issue during the first progress meeting held on December 18. Rachel Gomez, who has basically been our point of contact for all of in situ forums meetings, assured us that they were going to stay on schedule and they would complete on time. In fact, y'all may have seen in this last couple of weeks, they've been doing some in situ form, cured in place pipe reconstruction up and down Main Street and on Alsip and this sort of stuff. So you've seen some of the camera trucks cleaning sewers and Cameron sewers up and down Main Street. So they are proceeding on contract 2A. We held a pre-construction conference on the same day with them for contract 2B. In your notes that I provided to you, we do have a start date on January 26 and a completion date on September 23. Other than that, it's pretty much the same thing.
Well, the hour-long workshop meeting that we had just a week or so ago was very beneficial in outlining the scope of this project, where we were to start with, where we are now, the success that we've had to this point, and then what remains. We know it's costly, and when we see the expenditures that we're making, we're shocked by those kinds of dollars. But then we look at other cities who've dealt with the same type of thing. Mr. Burrow, what did you tell me that Metro Nashville was expending for this same type of thing? Over $3 billion. Knoxville, they had already reworked Knoxville's at a cost of $500 million. So it's the most expensive infrastructure that a city ever deals with is wastewater. So I do think and we know now that with the progress that's been made with the manhole that was so troublesome on Old Greenbrier Pike, the one at the foot of Circle Drive and Linda Lane, that since we've repaired those, that subsequent rain events that were significant have caused no overflows whatsoever.
Correct.
So we're definitely, and there will be some from time to time, but nothing of the magnitude that we've had in the past. So that's a good report. All right, I want to say thank you very much, Roger. Thursday of last week, Mayor Bradley and myself signed the paperwork that conveys the ownership of the Highland Crest campus to the state of Tennessee, which was our goal all along. which means that no longer does the county or the city have any responsibility for maintenance, upkeep, security, any of that. The building belongs to the state of Tennessee. If they cease to use it as a community college, it reverts to the city and the county. Otherwise, what we have expended, which is $3 million on the part of the city and $3 million for the county, our investment is being used as it was intended, and the cost ends at that. There's no more upkeep or anything else that has to be paid on it by the city or the county taxpayers. Enrollment, I understand, is of course going well, and with the Tennessee Promise program that Governor Haslam has outlined, it'll do nothing but go up considerably. So that needed to be said, and we're glad that that's transpired. Did you have anything in your report?
I did, Mayor, a few things, but I did, Alderman Hubbard asked me to bring this up, and I guess there's, Mr. Hubbard's been going to the National League of Cities meeting in Washington every year. Our policy has been that we try to set aside money for anyone who wants to go, aldermen to go, one national, one state, and one in-training seminar. And Mr. Hubbard never goes to TML. He's always going to the NLC meetings. So I guess, you know, if he'd like to go, and you need to make whatever approval you have to give him on that.
Do we need to add that to the agenda?
You could if you wanted to, or you just say, well, the state allocation, if he's not going to TML, just allocate that to Washington.
No, hold a position.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me personally. He represents us well and attends those meetings and has been on committees and that type of thing. What's your preference? Lady and gentlemen? I'm hearing nothing. Do you want to let him use the allocation, his allocation that he would get to go to TML for this purpose of attending the conference in Washington in March?
Yes.
Is there any problem with that?
No. It's good.
No problem. No problem.
No, it's good.
Unanimously. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Without objection, we'll let that go. All right.
All right, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to say that we're in the process of scheduling a day of time for photos to be taken of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and city department heads for the new website. And we'd like to take photos here in the boardroom. And I need to know from you this week what days of the week and times are good for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I told Jim Bellis, who will be taking the photos, that probably Wednesday and Fridays are not good, but Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, maybe after later afternoon, would be good. Does that work for everybody?
Tell me a time.
Okay. All right, we'll schedule that. Also, the contractor has been working on stripping the old roof at the Bransford Community Center, and as we awarded the bid, they gave us a price per square foot if any of the metal decking had to be replaced, and it had to be replaced on Section 2, and so it was $6 per square foot that was already included in the bid, and so I authorized to change that contract $16,800 to do that. And it's still within the line item budget amount, so I wanted to make you aware of that. And also, along the line of economic development, a retail developer has approached the city about a pilot agreement pertaining to the remodeling and expansion of existing retail facility. Of course, we do pilot agreements in a fairly standard way, and we have a formula for that. But the developer has inquired about the city's willingness to not charge for certain permit fees, like building permits, and to allow the developer to retain some of the additional local option sales tax generated by the expansion for a few years in order to assist the developer with debt service retirement. We asked them to get some information from us, you know, who they've worked with in this state or other states as far as a sales tax agreement, if you want to consider that. And when we get that information, we'll present it to the board at another time. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say before we close? Next meeting is the 17th of February. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Just took over.